All right, guys, welcome. Today I have my dear brother, Dr. Derrick Scott. Dr. Scott, can you tell him exactly where it is you work and what it is you do?
Yeah. I work at Delaware State University. It's an 1890 HBCU, similar to Virginia State. So it serves historically. There it is. Y'all see it? Dell State.
Love this.
Ah,
See how
so
you got a big nose on it? Yeah, because we got distinctly
yeah,
out.
it's a black Trojan right there.
That's a
It's a
black
black.
Trojan for sure.
Yeah. Delaware State is very similar to Virginia State in terms of demographics, and I mean, how things were when we were there. You see a lot of the same things here at Delaware State, serving historically disenfranchised people and minorities, and of course, we still kind of serve the same type of mission and vision statement with a lot of 1890 and also other HBCUs. So my research is in bioinformatics, so I'm a bioinformatician and my background is in molecular and genetics. So I work with my main two things. I work with bacterial evolution and colobacters, and then I also work with Chinese hamster ovary cells. So they call them.
That's
I'm gonna call them.
very
I'm gonna tell
specific.
you about the CHO cells.
Okay. That was a lot to throw in
Right.
there. I was like, are the Chinese, are the hamsters Chinese? Do they speak a different type of hamster?
So yeah, they're hamsters. They're actually Chinese hamsters, right? So you ever heard of Henrietta Lacks, where she has these cells that they're able to grow in solution outside of a body?
Right. For those who
So
haven't heard of Henrietta Lacks, she's like a real life X-Man. All right.
yeah,
Like for
legit.
real. Like
And
she
it's
she
still
had
get me
in
started
her.
on that, man.
Yeah. Let's not get into that, but look her up.
Yeah,
All right, you got the time.
yeah. So similar with this, they were able to take out the ovary cells from Chinese hamsters and basically grow them in a solution outside of a hamster. And the reason why that was important is I think that happened like in the 50s or so. Don't quote me. I gotta really look at the history on it. But in about the 80s, the biopharmaceutical industry realized that we can take these cells and essentially use them to grow medicine. And what I mean by grow is medicines kind of fall in two categories. The first is chemistry based, like Tylenol, Advil, things you can go into a lab and kind of cook up. And then the second one is biopharmaceuticals, and it's more complicated because you basically need a mammalian host to make these complex medicines that are too complex to do by hand. And so what they do is they essentially make up a new medicine. They
Mammalian
put it
being
inside.
mammal based, making sure I'm keeping up.
Yes, mammal based. So mammal based medicine, because we're mammals, and so the good thing about it is the CHO cells are able to, if you put a protein of interest inside of a cell, a CHO cell, and it makes it, it has to be folded a certain kind of way before our bodies recognize it. And so we can't use like bacteria, we can't use fungus to do that because they aren't mammals. They aren't mammal based. And so you basically can't do it. But CHO cells can make the medicine, fold it correctly, take it from CHO cells, and then we can actually just grow them up and take them. So all those commercials you see, like all those long side effects you be hearing about, when you see all the commercials on TV.
Yeah, and your hair gonna fall
Uh,
out. You're gonna be rectally bleeding, and
yeah, all that stuff.
yeah, you're right. You're
So
gonna get up and
most of
call your
those,
ex tonight.
if you look at the name of it, if it ends in MAB, like MAB, that means that it was grown in CHO cells. So most of the biologics that you see on the market, like Keytruda, you look at things for HIV treatments, cancer treatments, Crohn's disease. A lot of those are done in Chinese hamster ovary cells, and then they essentially grow them in these big bioreactors, and they extract the medicine, and they put it in some vials, and they ship it. Now the problem with that is, without getting too technical, it's like
Because we're
there's
getting too
certain
technical already. It's just
there are there are different disadvantages to using it, and it's basically the CHO cells change a lot when you grow them, and if the cells change, you can't use the medicine because of the FDA regulations. So there's a high waste, like you throw away a lot of the medicine at the end. So the medicine they do take, the price for, let's say if you're a patient who needs one of these medicines, could be six figures to actually afford it. So my research is, how do we make these CHO cells more stable? If we can make them more stable, we can basically decrease the waste product and basically decrease the price of the medicine. So I work with, that's probably my main project right now is dealing with CHO cells, figuring out how to make them more stable so that we can essentially increase the supply. And, once the supply goes up, the price goes down.
All this is amazing, right? But I want to make sure that, and thank you for that. But I want to make sure that this is streamlined, right? I might have to just do a little edit and put something right here because there are too many people out here in the streets saying crazy things about the coronavirus, about COVID-19. People are saying it's man-made. People are like, oh, it's a biological weapon, yo. It's been made to kill us. They're trying to kill us all, and they're trying to make it that. And there are some reasons scientifically why that's not so in terms of like what a virus is and the structure of a virus. Could you speak to any of that or enlighten us on that?
Yeah. So, well, let's start with number one. People aren't necessarily off base when it comes to Black people being at the bottom of the totem pole, the first ones to be experimented on, even when it comes to our government. You look at Tuskegee experiments where they essentially gave these people syphilis for 40 years.
So their paranoia is well founded.
Yes. Let's just start.
You're not crazy, all right?
You're not crazy. You're not crazy. There is some merit to what you're saying, But at the same time, you still got to use science-based logic to discuss any of these types of information and theories that you're getting. I will always suggest if you see something that's like a little too outlandish and that's on the left or the right, just research it. Just, if they mention some obscure study, read it. And you'll kind of get to the bottom of a lot of stuff just by reading it yourself. So that's number one. So like you're right, I get tagged a lot and are people in my inbox asking about this theory or that theory. And, I haven't found one that was credible yet, you can put it that way. So
you want to go through them categorically? This is all. You want to go through them categorically because I feel like people need it specifically. They need it
let's
straight, raw. They need the dirty. All right. Is Bill Gates creating all this as a media hoax so he can microchip everybody?
No. All right. Okay. All right.
By the way, I don't believe any of this nonsense. All right. I'm just it's so much to unpack.
So you're right. Let's talk about it. So Bill Gates, right? We got our boy Bill. Essentially, this is rooted in the Antichrist. Like this is all that the mark of the beast.
Okay. Way off. Okay. So religious beliefs basically. They're looking.
I think that has something to do with it. In terms of we're going to be marked.
You're not supposed to be talking on that. You're supposed to be talking about the science.
Yeah. So I just want to kind of
because most people hear that and they'll be like, "Oh, I don't want to hear that." What is the science of it from your perspective? Like, how would someone know that it's not a man-made virus?
Oh, so that's pretty simple. So man-made virus. Let me ask you something. So science is based in logic. Is based in common sense. It's kind of based in science is no different than any other thing that you're doing in terms of creativity. So let me ask you a question. I know that you you do stand up, right? And so I know you have an appreciation for the art of stand up. So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
If I ask you,
connect.
So if I ask you, I say, Kiragu, I want you to build me the perfect comedian. Mm-hmm. Just think about people in the past. What would your thought process be to do something like that?
Now I see where you're going. So I'd probably say, let me take a little bit here from Chappelle, take a little here from Eddie, a little from Pryor, right. And let me see if I can come to the right conclusion. This disease or this virus, because there's a difference between viruses and diseases. This virus has a mortality rate of about 1% currently. And that would make it a crappy weapon. Is that what you're getting at here? Because your screen is frozen on my end. I'm going to have to kick the boy off the PlayStation.
Hold on. I missed all that.
Oh, man, I thought I nailed it. I'm going to get this boy off the PlayStation. Hey, Kiragu, get off the PlayStation, man, so I can...
Hey, I was like, man, you better drop knowledge real quick. I missed it all.
I felt like I nailed it, and I forgot what I said. Now it's gone.
All right, so you said a little bit.
I was saying that the virus, first of all, I said something about disease, and then I said there's a difference between disease and virus. So I want to make sure we got that. That this virus has a mortality rate, meaning it kills about 1% of the people who get it. And I said that would make it an unsuccessful weapon. If you only are killing 1%, that definitely is not what a weapon's intended to do. So if I was trying to make the perfect comedian, I get all these good things or things that's going to make it more effective, I wouldn't make it like this. This is a very subtle disease that is passive in the way how it passes along. Is that what you were getting?
Well, I wasn't even going there, but that's facts too, though. Hey, that's facts too. That's a good point. That's a great point that you made.
You humble me. You're right. What were you
saying? But what you said at the beginning is key to kind of the point I was trying to make, right? Mm-hmm. So you're saying if you're making the perfect comedian, you would essentially draw on comedians of the past, and you'll draw this part. I want the stage presence of Richard Pryor. I want the punchlines of Dave Chappelle. Like, you got all these different parts that you'll put together to make this virus. You would not try to imagine something brand new to make this new comedian when you have so many great examples in the past to choose from. So the scientists
saying they would just use one of the many existing viruses.
Exactly.
We don't
so
have
what you would do.
For. Gotcha. Oh, well, you know what? Let's not give suggestions.
True. Some mad scientists over
there. That part of it. All right, just know that that's not what you would do. But what you're not going to do is tune in to me and think you're going to find out how to do it correctly.
So yeah, that's kind of it. They would use something that build on a new virus.
So
and what we do now is something that's brand new. It hasn't been seen before in nature. So it's a novel virus that has it's similar to coronaviruses, but the part that makes it are totally novel and brand new.
Okay, I've heard it referred to as a novel coronavirus or the novel coronavirus. Is that correct?
Yeah, so novel means new. We never seen it before.
Okay, now something that I've heard, because everybody's just watching the news and that's how we're learning this stuff, was that the way a virus works is that it invades the cell and rewrites information, right, and causes that cell to create more viruses, right? It's neither alive nor dead, therefore you cannot kill it, right? It's not anything like that, but it can, when passed on, leave information that tells where it came from, right?
So
yeah, how can they tell where a virus came from? Like, if I got infected here, they could look at the strain in my body and be able to tell where it originated. How?
All right, so it's like a game of telephone, right? Your kids, and you start with one person and they pass it on down. So think of that as evolution. Every person represents a stop where a small change is happening. Then they pass it to the next person, and then they get almost the same thing, but they make a small change, and to the next person, and the next person, the next person, the next person. So what we're talking about is when viruses are in your body, you're right, they hijack your machinery and they replicate to only produce a lot of the viral particles that they need to kind of reproduce themselves. They can't do it on their own. So they need you are the host that they use to do it for them. When they do a lot of the replication, little small changes happen in their genome. And then they go to a new person. And then so now it's almost the same as the old virus, with like maybe one or two small changes. And then now in this new person is making new viruses, a couple new changes happen maybe. And then it goes to the next person. So you can kind of watch how it's evolving based on the samples you get from person to person. And so essentially, once let's say we have all these different strains, you can just use the type strain that we normally have right at this point came from China. And that's on the internet right now. You can find that from NCBI. You can compare this first generation, and you can compare it to, let's say, somebody here in Dover ended up getting it, and you can compare it to what we have from the beginning, the parent, so to speak, and you can see these small changes. So you would expect everybody in Dover, their strain will look very similar than somebody who lives in Sacramento. And so you say, okay, here's the cluster in Sacramento. Here's a cluster in Seattle. Here's a cluster in New York City. And basically, they all have their own telltale signatures that you can compare with each other. Because the thing is traveling. It's like travel. And then so these little small differences add up, and these small changes basically are like a fingerprint to kind of let you know how the virus is evolving.
One of the things that's coming to mind now is that I'm sorry, the way how the virus spread, beginning over in China and moving on across Europe, and it seemed to get here last. Yet we seem to be the worst prepared, right? So if I look at countries like Singapore, places that are right there by China, it seems like they did a lot of testing, and we don't seem to be testing anybody. Everybody's going places saying they can't get tested, they didn't have a test, or they just sent me home. That seems to be like driving the numbers down, in terms of like the amount infected. Like we have 20,000 people who have died, right? That means if it's a 1% mortality rate, that means there should be that means there are 2 million people walking around here with the virus. So in terms of like what we should do next, and what would like testing look like if they were to reopen schools and do all this, could they do that safely with testing?
Well, what do you mean safely? That's
Right, like
really
if
what
we
you
were to
want.
reopen schools, not now, but in the fall, right? Because they won't have a vaccine or have anything distributed by then. I'm thinking right now everybody's doing all the classes online, right? But there's a push by the president and by several people in government, mostly Republican Party, and large business. They want to reopen businesses and they want everybody to go back. So as a teacher, I'm thinking the summer's going to come. It gets warmer. The virus may subside in certain places. Everybody feels like it's gone back to normal again, and they may try to open schools on time when the year starts. And I think that would be an error. So, but if they were to do it, I got to keep my job. I got to show up. What would a good response look like? Like if they had everybody and test everybody when they come into work and test every kid that comes in the door. Could they do that? Like, how does that work?
Technically, they could, but I doubt it. You would need, what we have, 330 million people in this country, something like that. You would need
Right.
300 million or so tests, and that's just not going to happen. So that would be optimal, if we could just snap our fingers and kind of make it
We're like the
happen.
richest country in the world now. Why wouldn't we be able to afford 300 million tests?
No, it's not about afford. You can afford a lot in this country. It's never a question of money. It depends on what people think the money is worth spending on. And so our administration at this point seems to be very clear that they are leaving it up to the states, and the government is pretty much taking a back seat and letting the states run their own thing on a state-by-state basis. So at this
Right.
point,
States
I
don't have
think,
that type of money.
yeah, they don't. They don't. It depends. Some states may be, depending on how big your state is. Delaware is pretty small. It's only not even maybe about 1 million people in the state of Delaware.
Wow.
So that may be something that that may be more viable depending on what our finances are looking like. So unless the government decides to really step in and take a more centralized approach, a more top-down approach, I think you're going to have these issues like what in Florida the beaches are open, and
Mm-hmm. So
so
what I conclude is that we've chosen to just die slowly.
no, it's going to be
If we just keep venturing out there and no one's tested, you know what I mean? What is this? It's like what?
so really
How's that a solution?
it's a die fast solution. What I mean is this: the whole point of the quarantine is not to get rid of the virus. The point of the quarantine is to slow it and spread it out so that the hospital systems do not become overwhelmed all at once.
Mm,
So the whole point of this, flatten the curve is what they call it.
mhm,
You essentially, if people, let's say we have 100 people that are going to get, let's just make a number up. 100 people are going to get sick from the virus, right?
mhm.
If we say 10 people this week, 10 people next week, 10 people next week, in 10 weeks, everybody, pretty much we can kind of manage that. And of that 10 people, every one person will die, if you look at the percentages. So actually,
Right. It's
one
like
in a
slowing
100.
down the end result.
Exactly. So what? You 1 in 100 will be the end cases. But imagine if 50 people get sick today, 50 people get sick tomorrow.
Right.
Like we
Hospitals
just
full.
can't,
Got
we can't care for that many people. That we don't have enough beds. enough
But
ventilators, anything like that.
still, what you seem to be laying out is two options, and both are not optimal, right?
Mhm.
Where it's like one, we're just
Money,
walking out there and dying
lives.
too slow so that the hospitals collapse, or we walk out there and walk and do it so slow that the hospitals can keep up, and we can just keep on doing what we're doing. But what I'm
But the
suggesting is a
economy,
third solution, right? Where we do what some of the other countries did: invest in the testing, get everybody tested, find out who has it, isolate it, figure out how to do this.
so we
I'm
could. I think we need testing. Testing is important to get people tested. Not a lot of times, if you aren't basically on death's door or showing all these symptoms, they're
and
not giving you a test.
And that's what I'm talking about. We shouldn't operate from a place of like not having.
Yes.
We clearly are the one country that should have. We're not even saying I won't. I'm not on this whole American exceptionalism thing. I don't know why I'm like we're the best country in the world and we are man. We no. Let me calm down. We got money. We have money. All right. If anybody, if you're the Democratic, Republican, Libertarian, they should understand that we at least have money. All right. So if if there's money, why not spend? I don't know how much a test costs, but I don't
Well,
care
that's the
if
other
it costs
thing.
a billion
Supply. We don't have
dollars.
enough.
They just gave $1 billion away to people with these tax cuts and trillions of dollars. Like,
Yeah. So,
like why not invest in the test and
um,
save a
I
percentage of the
think
people?
a big thing you got to realize as well is it's hard to manufacture for all the tests that we need currently.
Mm,
So even if we had the money, we just don't have the supply right now. So that's going to take time to ramp up production. You're right. It seems like we were late on a lot of things in terms of this pandemic, where right now we're retrofitting some companies for masks and things
right.
like that. So
And we were
we
sending
will get
masks
there.
to
We have
China
to.
when the pandemic was just coming here. Like, what is? And it's like, how does that make sense? We're gonna sell y'all some masks. We might need them, but we're gonna. I I don't
Hey, man,
understand what
it's
we're doing.
I guess politics as usual when you deal with stuff like that because
Ooh,
you're right. We have the money. I think we need the
this
supply.
isn't
And
usual.
once
I'm
we
not
have the
one.
supply, to get it out.
Right. Okay.
But I agree. I think we can. I think we need to get a lot more testing. We need to have people where they can get the test reliably. So a person who's getting the test 5 days could be a lot. By the time you show symptoms, it could be 10 days to 2 weeks
Mhm.
that or some people are asymptomatic and they just never know, period. And
Right.
they're walking around, they're going out to Sam's Club and other places. And if they aren't being very clean or they aren't wearing a mask and things of that nature, just the ignorance of the matter because they don't have a test and can't get tested for the most part, they would not even have a reason to do it if they're asymptomatic. So you're right. I think a big part will be getting a lot of tests out there and getting production to a point where it shouldn't be a question of can I get tested, is do you want to get tested? I think is what we should be aiming for, a big part of this whole reopening process.
Right. Because I wouldn't suggest like forcing everybody to get tested, because then that's a whole nother level of thing. But
Yeah, you can't force anybody to do anything.
right. Uh, all right. Well, as far as the science component, right? Let's see. I'm trying to think. This is the part you cut out because I don't have anything else to say. All right, that's it. I don't want to take up your whole evening, man.
Oh no, we got man. She got what else we talking about?
Oh, let me pause it there.
5G.
Oh God, no! See, I was about to cut it off, and you came up with the one right there. All right, yes, you're a scientist. Why is that stupid? why is
I,
why why is
I,
5G not causing the corona? I don't even know. That's another one where it's like a lot to unpack. Um, okay, what is radiation? How does radiation affect the body? There's certain type of radiation that is
all right, let's look at this real quick. All right, so let's look at. Let me back this up. All right, see this.
oh, look at this. We got graphics. Okay.
Yeah, so this is this is a wave, right?
Electromagnetic wave or wavelength. That's what you're showing.
It doesn't really matter. You got sound waves, light waves. There's a lot of different kinds of waves,
Okay.
but they all pretty much work the same. All right, the distance between peak to peak or trough to trough or low point to low point is a wave, right? So this part right here is the measurement of a wave, just from here to here.
Right, the length.
Now, the length. That's what's called a wavelength, right? So the length of the wave determines the energy. Now, if it is, so there's basically two different kinds of waves that you can look at. Some waves look like this. Some waves look like this.
Mm-hmm.
So the one on the top is essentially smaller waves, and because you can see they're a lot smaller in terms of.
I got this one. Smaller wave, but a higher frequency.
And smaller the wave, the higher the energy.
Frequency, energy.
So the longer. Yep. So the thing about it is those small waves don't travel very far, but they have a lot of energy. So X-rays, gamma rays, even UV radiation, these are all smaller waves, and they have a lot of power, but they really can't carry information long distances. Now you have long waves like radio waves. You have waves like you have on the Predator when he's looking and they have the red and the green and everything. The vision from that's called infrared. That's infrared rays. You have microwaves. So all of these are long waves. They can travel a long distance and they can carry information, but they don't really carry a lot of energy. So 5G works on radio waves. It's a long wavelength technology. Long. And so forget everything you hear and like it either can hurt you or it can't. And the waves are too long to hurt you. Now, if you said they were traveling 5Gs and X-rays or gamma rays or UV rays, then that's something you got to look into. They would have to have a bunch of them because they can't carry the information that far because they're smaller waves. Right. But they don't.
People would have to have like the antennas or the waves. Like some people don't even have 5G in the area or in there. Like they don't even have it in their part of the country, and they're like, we got.
Because in South Carolina, there is no 5G. In South Carolina,
I know from the country too. I'm like, what are y'all talking
about? There's no 5G in the whole state of South Carolina, not yet. So, but of course, we still got these problems. So it's too long. The wavelengths are not the kind of waves that can hurt you because they're radio waves. And there are a lot of places that don't even have 5G, or places like Norway that does have 5G. They doing all right. In terms of their response.
So they're doing testing.
So exactly. testing. Not because they have a magical way of making sure the 5G doesn't affect them. So that's right. There's not really a lot of science behind it.
It's a lot of people saying a lot of things. We need testing. All right, testing or vaccine, one or the other.
Yeah, that's another situation too. We talk about vaccines, but
right. This is like the new norm for like the next year, 2 years, until somebody come up with this.
I think we'll probably see one this time next year. I think this time next year.
All right, crossing the fingers.
Yeah, that's what I think we'll have that.
Right. I would like something like normal, but not the normal.
Yeah, it's going to be this new. It's a new normal. You're right. It's going to be a new normal. Man, things are going to change. The education system is changing right before our eyes. How we do in the corporate world in terms of people, we can't do this stay-at-home thing. Of course we can. We're doing it right now, and people are making it happen. So it's a lot of things have been upended in terms of
stay home.
Yeah, exactly. So this is going to be interesting, man. Thankfully, I'm in a position where, at least so far, that we're okay. We just transfer everything online with our classes, and so students are having problems and just really trying to have empathy dealing with them in this new situation, man. Because as a student, imagine you have 18 hours worth of classes and they're all online all of a sudden, and you didn't sign up for that. So it's definitely not we got to consider in these times.
I need that personal touch. I definitely do better in the class.
Yeah, so do I as a professor, man. I would prefer to teach in person than looking through a camera and trying to make sure that my class is okay.
Yeah, it's a different experience, but I will say this: when things return back or to some type of normal, we got to try to make like a better normal, you know. And I had a couple kids that never came to class, not a single time, and they signed up when it was time to when it was made available. They were like some of the first ones that signed up, you know. And for some of the kids I teach, they have issues with anxiety. They have
Mm-hmm.
issues where, you know, it would cause them to not want to be in a room with a few other people who also have some issues, you
Yep.
know, and the online thing seemed to be like a good gateway for those kids.
Oh, we're going to
Yeah.
see a lot of that moving forward. A
Yeah.
lot of that
Yeah.
moving
I'm
forward.
developing content all like this, all with that in mind.
True. Yeah,
Yeah.
man, that's a good idea. You're on the right track because this is going to be the new normal, and figuring out a way to kind of get ahead of it and be,
Yeah. People need
instead of being
information.
reactionary, just being proactive.
Right. Information can beat all of this. It can beat back whatever this virus is. It can beat back the ignorance and racism that everybody's in a flood with. I feel like information is the key. You know, so
If
keep
they
teaching,
listen,
man.
if they, you gotta get people to. You're right. Just man,
You
information, but you gotta
should have wore
see.
shouldn't have wore a suit. You should have wore like a Scully. They're
I
gonna
had to put
say
my do
you.
rag back on.
They're gonna call you like the Surgeon General. They're gonna call you Uncle Tom. Say he out here saying 5G ain't
Hey,
real.
hey, man,
He saw that brother
hey,
up
it's
there
just so
dancing. He's like, I want these people to keep liking me, y'all. Call you me mom. Call you big
yo,
pop
it's a
pop.
mirror out there.
Call big mom. Abuela.
You gotta do you gotta do a
Like, you
separate
must be
one. You gotta
wilding.
do a separate video. Where I put on my do rag and my Scully, and then we can
That's
do
it. Yeah. We
you
have
know.
Dr. Scott and then we'll have D Scott. D
Yeah, no,
Scott.
no, it's not Doctor Scott. It's just the boy, your Skriz, man. Skriz can come and talk to for him a little bit,
Chris.
and hey, take it back for a minute and
I'm
talk
not
to him
doing
one
that.
on one.
I am not wasting all this space on my laptop with you. All right, it's Chris. Yo, thank you for your time. Thank you for your information. Like I said, we're gonna beat this back just like this by talking about it with professionals, right? With people that are knowledgeable. I respect you, brother, and your knowledge. Hopefully, somebody actually listens to this. All right.
Yeah, man, keep doing your thing, man. You're doing a good thing out there in Baltimore, man. Like people, kids are looking up to you, man. Like
No, they
stay
don't.
positive, stay doing when it's needed.
No, they don't. Did you look up to your teachers? No, they don't look up to me.
Oh, bro, listen,
They
listen.
see me like,
10 years
oh,
from
here
now,
you go again.
in
Oh.
the, listen, in the moment, it is what it is. When they're 25, when they're 35 years old, it could be
It's
like,
too late. It's too late by then. I see, I see him. I be like, man, I should have listened to you, Beauttah. Beauttah, I should have listened to you. I be like, look, man, I love you anyway, bro. It's all good. It's all
you know how
good.
it is, man.
I'm like that too. I see some of my teachers. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just apologize immediately. Sorry.
True.
I didn't know. All right, but look, this is it. It's Class Clown signing off. Virginia State University, Alpha Phi Alpha, all that. Peace.
Yes, sir. I got you.